You know, when we think about history, we often think big, right? Big battles, famous leaders. But what if the real story of a nation is found in the journey of just one family? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're diving deep into the history of the DuBose family, tracing their path all the way from 17th century France to the American frontier. And what you'll see is that their story, well, it's really the American story.
So to really get why someone like Isaac DuBose would risk everything to cross an ocean, you have to understand the situation back in France. It was intense. I mean, this quote right here says it all. Chilling, right? For the Huguenots, that's what French Protestants were called, there was no gray area. It was literally a choice between your faith and your life. This wasn't just a tough spot. This was a world they had to escape.
And for a while, things were okay. For nearly 100 years, actually. There was this thing called the Edict of Nantes. You can think of it as this groundbreaking agreement that basically gave the Huguenots the right to practice their faith in a country that was overwhelmingly Catholic. It was their protection, their shield. But, as you can probably guess, that shield was about to be completely shattered.
And I mean, look how fast it all went downhill. Boom, 1685. King Louis XIV just tears up the Edict of Nantes, just like that. And overnight, everything changes. Huguenot churches destroyed. Their schools closed. Ministers were exiled. It sparked this massive refugee crisis with hundreds of thousands of people fleeing for their lives. And right in the middle of all that chaos, that's where the story of the DuBose family in America really kicks off.
All right, so France is off the table. It's just not safe anymore. For Isaac DuBose, this meant making an impossible decision. His family's quest for survival was about to start. So let's meet the man at the center of our story, Isaac DuBose. He came from a port town in Normandy, which was a real hotspot for Huguenots. Now, he wasn't some big-shot general or a fancy nobleman. He was representative of the thousands of merchants, artisans, and farmers who woke up one day to find they were criminals in their own homeland. His story really is their story. And let me tell you, the path to a new life was anything but easy. I mean, first you had to sneak out of France, which was incredibly dangerous. Then you've got to make your way to England, hoping to find a ship. Then comes the brutal, months-long voyage across the Atlantic. But for the lucky ones who survived the trip, the province of Carolina was waiting, offering land and, most importantly, religious freedom. Isaac and his family eventually settled in a place called the Orange Quarter, basically a small community made up of other French refugees just like them.
Okay, so they made it, but getting there was really just the beginning. Now came the hard part, carving out a life in a new land and figuring out how to go from being French to being American.
And this right here is a really cool piece of history. It's called the St. Julian List. What is it? Well, it's basically a formal petition, a list of names of French and Swiss refugees asking to be naturalized, to become official citizens. Think about that. They'd been there for less than 10 years, and they were already putting down roots, officially committing to this new country and the rights that came with it. The very rights they'd been denied back in France.
So how do you go from being an outsider to an insider? One of the fastest ways is through marriage, and the DuBose family did just that. You can see here how their kids and grandkids started marrying into other influential families. Some were fellow Huguenots, strengthening that community bond, while others were established English colonists. It's like they were weaving their family threads into the very fabric of Carolina society, one marriage at a time.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it? They left Europe to escape conflict, only to find their family's new identity would be forged in the fires of war in America.
And this is where you see this incredible transformation. Fast forward to the American Revolution. Now you have the grandchildren of these French refugees fighting against a king for the same kind of liberties their grandparents fled France to find. Then, not even 100 years later, their descendants are fighting in the Civil War. Their identity is now completely inseparable from the American South. It's a total evolution. From outsiders to people so deeply rooted in their new home, they're willing to fight for it.
Let's zoom in on one person, Joseph W. Hale, a DuBose descendant in Alabama. This quote from a book at the time says he was among those who volunteered to stay the hand of the invader right when the Civil War kicked off. It just goes to show you there was no hesitation. The family's loyalty was now, without a doubt, with their state and their region.
But his story doesn't stop with the war. After the fighting ended, Dr. Hale went home, became a doctor, and even served as the mayor of his town. He went from soldier to community builder. And this is a pattern you see again and again with this family. They didn't just live in their communities, they actively shaped and led them.
So, the family didn't just stay put in South Carolina, nope. As America started expanding westward, the descendants of Isaac DuBose were right there with them, always pushing on for new land and new opportunities.
You can actually trace their journey right here. Step 1, they put down deep roots in South Carolina. Step 2, the next generation heads west into Alabama, looking for fresh opportunities. And then, step 3, the generation after that pushes even farther, all the way to Texas, becoming part of that frontier settlement story.
And we can see this through real people. So let's start with William Shaw DuBose. He was born in South Carolina in 1857. He represents that original foundation. Then, jump forward about 60 years, and you've got Tom Davis DuBose Sr., born in Atmore, Alabama. See? The family's on the move, part of that huge westward push across the South.
And to finish the sequence, here's Dovie Creslia Barber, another descendant born way out in Little River, Texas in 1895. So in just a handful of generations, this one family went from a tiny refugee settlement on the Atlantic coast to the heart of the American West. That's pretty amazing.
All right, so let's zoom back out. After all this, what's the big picture? What does this 300-year journey really tell us?
I mean, just stop and think about this for a second. It all started with one couple, Isaac and Suzanne DuBose. They were refugees who literally fled with nothing. And from them, this enormous family tree has sprouted, with thousands upon thousands of branches that have touched practically every major moment in American history.
And when I say thousands, I mean it. The number is just mind-blowing. Genealogical records have tracked over 10,000 descendants. 10,000. That's not just a family tree. That's a forest. It's a stunning example of how one single story of survival can grow into a legacy that's literally woven into the DNA of an entire nation.
So that kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on, right? We followed this one family's incredible journey, from refugees seeking freedom, to community builders, to soldiers, to pioneers. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Maybe the real, messy, and incredible story of a nation isn't just in the history books, but in the journeys of families just like the DuBoses.